Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with a new YouTube video. I'm going to try out a new channel. And I want to talk about one of my hobbies today, which would be Magic the Gathering. And we're going to do a little in-depth look at probably one of the better decks out there for this kind of mono-red landscape. It is Feldon of the Third Path. Sorry about my lighting. Still trying to get the hang of doing videos with this new camera. So as you can see, his ability is 2 red tap, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sack it at the end of sack it at the beginning of the end step. He is a 2/3 for 1 red, a legendary human artificer. I like to play him around Christmas time because I call him Santa Feldon. He does look like Santa. And this is a deck, too, that you don't want to quite get used to playing in your play group that often, because it is a very graveyard-based deck, so you'll probably encounter some graveyard hate. I usually only play this around this time of the month, Christmas. I'm actually filming this here on the 18th of December. But with COVID, I haven't had a chance to play, so I thought, might as well share this with everyone. Oh, I also play them in July too, because there is a thing called Christmas in July. So we'll start off with the mana base. It's pretty simple. I made sure to get all matching basics. These are from Cons of Tarkir. Yes. Try to get better focus. Just basic mountains. I got 20 of them here. And yes, they do all indeed match. Okay, from there we're going to go to these lands are just in no particular order. You can either do 20 mountains or 21, but I did 20 because there is a snow-covered mountain from Modern Horizons. And then we have a Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. This kind of helps you out in late game, you know, if you just want to have some mountains come in and pick off a few little things that might be giving you some headaches. Next up, we have a Forgotten Cave. One of the old cycle lands. I actually have my old Onslaught ones, so I like using that. Same with Smoldering Crater. I had some Urza ones, so I try to enjoy those the best I can. Then we've also got the Homeward Path here. So what this does is it helps if you're playing against a deck that's trying to take creatures or just anything to get rid of your creature in control. It really helps because Mono Red doesn't have a way to get rid of any sort of... it's been a while since I've played, since before the pandemic. And here we have Hall of the Bandit Lord. This is a good way to give him haste by paying 3 life and tapping to add 1 to your mana pool. Then we have a Buried Ruin, which this deck came from the Commander 14 set. So I made sure to go ahead and try to use as many of these cards as I can. You know, I like the artwork and whatnot. Plus you'll see how this ability, the 2 tap sack, turn target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, works in this deck. We have a Ghost Quarter. Again, this Ghost Quarter is just a way to try to get rid of some lands that might be giving you a bit of a headache, which that does happen in Commander. There's a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. And this helps with the loot effects of the deck because you're going to be looting quite a bit. We have a Great Furnace. Why? Because it's an artifact land. That's pretty much the only reason why. It's another artifact. Inventor's Fair from Kaladesh. You know, I did like this Kaladesh set. Mainly because it had a lot of good cards, that whole block, when it came to artifacts. But I didn't really play in Standard at the time, but I do like that ability to search your library for an artifact card. It basically tutors it. And that's only if you control 3 or more artifacts, and you pay the 4 and sack it. Temple of the False God. Again, this is not a super competitive deck, it's just more for fun. It can win pretty quickly, but, you know, Temple of the False God is not the best anymore. I just still like it every now and then. Depends on the deck. A lot of times I don't play it, but in this one I do. especially because of the mana rocks. We have an Arcane Lighthouse, again to target your opponent's creatures that have hexproof or shroud, so that kind of helps you get through some ways. And then we have a Myriad Landscape, which I actually highly recommend at any monocolored deck, because it lets you pay 2, tap sack it, and you can find 2 basics, put them in play tapped, and shuffle your library. It's a good mana ramp card, especially because we have ways in here to keep using this card. Good old High Market, another land. A Sequestered Stash, 4 tap sack. Put top 5 of your library in your graveyard, then you put an artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. Really good. And a Darksteel Citadel, another artifact land, just adds 1 mana. I mentioned the artifact ability earlier, or the artifact sub-theme I should say. And that is because we actually do have a very good card for that. Now remember how I mentioned that this deck came from Commander 2014. And this is the guy that was actually the true commander for 2014. Doretti Scrap Savant, aka Doretti Mom Spaghetti. His ability to loot, basically weld, where you can sack an artifact and return one from your graveyard. And then the emblem, where you get an artifact when it's put in your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. I actually never play that ability. Mainly his first 2 are just so good that I never get to that 10. He's only a 3, so I mean, sometimes I get up there, but by that time I've already come close to winning, or I've already lost. Hey, it happens to the best of us. No one wins every single game. This one is just hilarious to me. Burning Inquiry, a single red for a sorcery. It's one of those M10 commons. It's actually worth a few dollars, which is quite surprising. Because it is, each player draws 3 cards and discards 3 cards at random. For us, we do want to be putting things in the graveyard, and we really don't care because we can get most of them back, if not all of them back at some point in time. So it is pretty fun to play this, especially if you're going against another control deck or a combo deck, something that wants to keep their hand a certain way and it really hurts them. We also do some draw 7s. For example, we have a Reforge the Soul. Now another good card in here, which is amazingly good with your commander, is Sneak Attack. 3 in a red, tap. Put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Basically, okay, I'll sacrifice it, and then next turn I'll just make a copy of them. Now this next card, you don't necessarily need to play. I just happen to have one. Actually, I have a few of them. Here is a Wheel of Fortune. This is the OG draw 7. 2 in a red for a sorcery. All players must discard their hand and draw 7 new cards. Speaking of that ability with the graveyard, we have a Gamble. A red for a sorcery. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, discard a card at random, then shuffle your library. And what's the worst that can happen? Not a whole lot in this deck. There's Cathartic Reunion. We have another, as an additional cost, discard 2 cards and draw 3 for 1 in a red. Good way to help fill your hand and your graveyard. And another looting spell, Faithless Looting. Draw 2 cards and discard with flashback. See, this is another reason why I liked buying this deck. Because I got a Goblin Welder with the deck. So, if you don't know what Welder does, choose target artifact a player controls and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. Both targets are still legal as this ability resolves. That player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. So you can use this as sort of offensive and defensive. Yeah, this guy is straight up offense. This is with Atali Primal Storm. For 6 mana, you get a 6/6. But his ability, when you attack, everyone exiles the top card of their library, and you may cast any number of cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. And yes, that is instant speed. I kind of call this guy a lieutenant. I would say more that Feldon and Doretti are co-commanders almost. You can swap them out and you'll still have a good time. But this guy's a lieutenant with any of them because of that ability with the at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add red to your mana pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So you'll be doing a lot of damage, and then you'll be getting a lot more red, and then you'll be able to do more things. Now what Hellkite Tyrant is, he's a good way to get a lot of artifacts. You'll have a way to make a lot of artifacts, and it's an alternate win condition. Magus of the Wheel to focus in. 1 red, tap sack. Each player discards all cards in their hand and then draws 7 cards. So again, it's like Wheel of Fortune, except it's a little bit slower, a little bit more mana at once, and you'll be able to do this multiple times a turn with your commander, if you so choose to do so. We have a Dragon Mage. Okay, so Dragon Mage, I like him again, another draw 7, but he's a creature. He's a 5/5 for 7 mana, but he's a flyer and you have to do the damage to get that wheel effect. I have a few more dragons in here. Again, this is a Hoarding Dragon. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact and exile it, and whenever he dies, you may put the exiled card into its owner's hand. Good way to tutor up an artifact that you might need. Good old FTK. I believe he came into the deck, but I swapped out the arts if I like the art better than the older ones that I have. Simple. It comes into play, deals 4 damage to target creature. 4 mana for a 4/2. I did have Tyrant's Familiar in this deck, but I believe Drakuseth, Maw of Flames is better. It is basically the same mana cost. 7 mana overall converted mana cost for a 7/7 flyer. And when he attacks, instead of dealing, the 7 to 1 creature, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. Really helps keep a board state under control if you're trying to pick off some annoying commanders and whatnot. Then for our artifact Shenanigans, we have a Scrap Trawler. So whenever you do a Feldon ability, you copy the creature. It copies the converted mana cost, and it's an artifact. So at the end of turn, whenever you say sacrifice a Drakuseth, you're going to look for an artifact with converted mana cost 7 or less, actually less than 7, from your graveyard, and return that card to your hand. Pretty good. This is more, in this deck, this is more of a combo piece than an actual attack piece. A Mere Battlesphere, 7 mana artifact creature. You get 4 1/1 colorless Mere artifact tokens. You'll have a Phyrexian Altar in this deck too. So you can just sort of start chaining them off. And it gets pretty ridiculous. Now this guy, not exactly a heavy hitter. 2/2 for 2 mana. But it also has Echo, so it'll end up in the graveyard. But whenever he comes into play, return target creature opponent controls to its owner's hand. Good way to bounce stuff. And with Feldon, you can use that ability of his at instant speed. What deck that's looting as much, and being in mono red, would not benefit from a Squee Goblin Nabob? 2 in a red. Legendary creature Goblin. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return Squee Goblin Nabob from your graveyard to your hand. Not bad. Now, I haven't really got to play with all these cards that I got in Modern Horizons because moved to a new house, job, whatnot. But we do have a Seasoned Pyromancer, which I actually pulled from a pack. 2/2 for 3 mana. Battlefield, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And he also has that exile ability, which I'll probably never use. Speaking of artifacts and creatures, don't you need more removal? How about a Meteor Golem? 7 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Good removal spell. And we have a mass removal creature here. This mass removal creature is a Balefire Dragon. Flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. Very, very good. I'm going to do a little bit more looting here with another little 2-mana dork, 2/2. Red, tap, discard a card, draw a card. Or 2 in red, tap, sacrifice, deals 4 damage to target creature. Pretty good. You can do an FTK one time, or it can actually help you loot to find more stuff. Now, we do have another goblin, but this guy is also another little tutor. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, put it into your graveyard, and shuffle your library. Then red, tap, sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact card to convert a mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to your battlefield. Very, very good, because I have some amazingly powerful artifacts you'll see coming up. Now this is just a junk diver. He is also in the Commander 2014 deck, but I went with the old Urza's printing because I had one and he's dirt cheap. When he's put in the graveyard from play, return a target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Pretty good. This still blows me away that this was actually in a pre-constructed commander deck. The Worm Coil Engine. 6 mana for the 6/6, and you should know what he does already. When it dies, it basically splits in half. You get one with the Death Touch ability and one with the lifelink, and both are 3/3s. I have actually done a pod kill with this card. This is a Bogardan Hellkite for 8 mana. See if I can get that to focus a little bit better there. Yeah, 6 red. You get a 5/5 Flying Flash Dragon. As a battlefield, it does 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Not too shabby. I don't remember if he was in the deck or not, but I do have an Anger for 3 and a red. 2/2. That gives all your stuff haste if he's in your graveyard and you control a mountain. Speaking of those artifacts we're going to sacrifice at one point in time, why not use a Bosch Iron Golem? For 8 mana, you get a 6/7 Trampler, but the 3 red, sacrifice an artifact. Bosch deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's converted mana cost to target creature or player. Good way to start killing off people. Speaking of card draw and or making the graveyard fat, we have Combustible Gearhawk, 6/6. Enters the battlefield, and target opponent. So you better choose a good opponent. You either get to draw 3, or the top 3 cards go into your graveyard, and Combustible Gearhawk does damage equal to the number, or equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards. And as you've seen with these, with this deck, you have a lot of high converted mana costs, so it will deal a lot of damage. An Ingot Chewer. I never cast it for the 4 and the red. I always use the Evoke, or I use Feldon's ability, because when he enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact. Pretty decent, little utility creature. Good way to get rid of a mana rock early. Blow up someone's Soul Ring on turn 1. We have the Quicksmith Genius, again from the Kaladesh block. Artifact enters the battlefield under your control, aka a Feldon trigger. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. For a 3/2. Sad Robot. Solemn Simulacrum. I have I have the older art, but it's actually in another deck, so I just figured, I'll just use this one. Art on this one's pretty good too. So when Solemn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land, put it in the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. When he dies, you may draw a card. It's a pretty good trigger for an early, if you get Feldon out early, it's pretty good to keep using him to sort of mana ramp and draw more cards. Now, this card I had some issue with putting in the deck, because I really don't like the idea of relying on your opponents to be playing creatures. But for 7 mana, 6/4 with haste isn't that good. But that ability, it is very, very good. Especially because we have sack outlets in this deck, so we can start taking their creatures, attack with their creatures, and then sacrifice their creatures for a benefit to us. Very good card. And I might as well just show these two at the same time because, well, you're going to be playing these two at the same time. A Painter's Servant and a Grindstone. To save you a little bit of effort here, the Painter's Servant turns all cards in libraries. All cards that aren't in play, spells, and permanents are the chosen color in addition to the other types. Pick a single color, then you just Grindstone someone out. Because all their cards will be sharing the same color. And both of these are under the converted mana cost of 3. A good old trading post. I usually use the last two abilities mostly, but even the first ability is pretty good because you can still sort of get those targets into your graveyard, like if you have a bigger creature in your hand early. Good way to get them out so that way Feldon can start making crazy stuff happen. So we'll look next at a Crucible of Worlds. You may play land cards from your graveyard as though they were in your hand. It's an original Dark Steel. Very good card. Glad it got reprinted and made it a lot cheaper, at least for a little bit. I don't know what the price is right now because I'm not really following the market too much. Next up we've got an Anvil. So, lets you draw one more additional card during each of your turns. Does this with everyone. But you also get to discard an extra card. And you do have an unlimited hand size with this card. So it helps your opponents a little bit, but you're actually going to see more of a benefit from it than they will, for the most part. Simple Lightning Greaves. Not even going to bother because you should know what this does. It's been in precons, been reprinted a lot. And it still keeps that good old price. Next up, we have a 1,000-Year Elixir. Lets me play those Feldon abilities like he had haste, and also lets me untap him. We do have a few untap effects in here for Feldon. Here's another one with Thornbite Staff. Now this one, 2 tap. This creature deals 1 damage to a creature or player, which no one really cares about. But we do care about whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. And he's not a shaman, so nobody really cares about the other ability. 2 mana to play, 4 to equip. Works very good in this deck, Krenko decks. Anything where you can actually use that ability to untap your creature and see some massive returns on that. Phyrexian Altar. I am so glad they reprinted this card. That is the only reason why I have one, because I was not going to be paying $50+ for this at one point in time. 3, sack a creature, add 1 mana of any color. Can't beat it at all. Here is a Heartstone, which is not very common to see. It is 3 mana for an artifact from Stronghold, which I believe this was a rare. I'm not really sure, I can't remember the exact rarity. This is before they started changing the symbols for rarity. That symbol was the only symbol you saw in the entire set. So the cost of a creature ability requiring activation cost is reduced by 1. This cannot reduce an ability's generic mana cost to less than 1. So instead of 3 to activate Feldon, it's now 2. Illusionist Bracers helps you copy Feldon triggers because it's an activated ability. You get to choose new targets. 2 to play, 3 to equip. Very good. Speaking of good, Alter Dementia. 2 mana. Sack a creature, target player puts a number of cards equal to that creature's power from the top of his or her library into the graveyard. So, using Feldon, these bigger creatures, you're going to start getting a very, very fat graveyard. Mage Stone. Another way to untap Feldon. Very good. I see it a lot in Krenko too. We got a Fire Diamond. Not bad to make mana. A Mana Vault. Very, very good. Especially because you can use him to weld. Panharmonicon. Remember when this card came out? It was so stupid. 4 mana, lets you copy abilities that, lets you copy ETB abilities of a permanent. So you can start copying the damage or making tokens or whatnot. Sundial of the Infinite. It's a good way to exile that last little annoying ability on Feldon where you have to sacrifice the token at end of turn. You can put that ability on the stack, and then you can end the turn and exile before it even resolves. Wayfarer's Michael Bublé. Wayfarer's Bauble. So 2, tap sack, search basic, put in play tap, shuffle your library for 1. So 3 mana altogether for Rampant Growth. We're going to reuse this a lot. Crack Clan Ironworks. Second artifact, add 2 to your mana pool. It's expensive for a minute there in Modern, but it's looking to be about normal now. Liquid Metal Coating. Target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn. Good way to start abusing Welder with your opponent's stuff. Swiftfoot Boots, not going to cover it very much because, well, you should already know what it does. It's been printed a lot and it sees a lot of play in Commander. The Ruby Medallion that came with this deck. Not bad at all, makes my stuff cheaper. An old Ashnod's Altar that I had from Chronicles. Sack creature, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. We don't really do mana sources anymore. 3 mana. Caged Sun. Don't really use it too often for the converted mana cost, but I do use it in welder abilities because doubling my mana is pretty good. Don't really care too much about the +1/+1. Soaring. Everyone has one. Strionic Resonator. Copies a triggered ability. Choose new targets. Well, thank you for watching. Have a great day.